I'm just here to keep it real with you guys, to keep it a buck. Um, if I had a magic pill to give every single one of you guys, it would be a pill that would give you guys an instant burst of self-awareness. I think one thing that I've been grounded in across my entire career, back to back when I was playing in college as well, is that I've always been just wildly self-aware. Always knew I was an entrepreneur, and I always knew I was an athlete. I was that kid back in middle school who was hustling Skittles. I used to go to school with two backpacks. One had my books in it, other one had Skittles. Box of Skittles at Sam's Club cost $13. Came with 36 bags of Skittles. Make 23 a box. Keep flipping it. That's how I bought my first cell phone back in the day. Once I went to college, so I went to a small school called Monmouth University in Jersey. The only thing that they're famous for in basketball is the little bench mob that they had going a few years back. Uh, when I got to Monmouth, I started an iPhone repair business. So I literally, my little brother cracked his iPhone 4 uh, senior year of high school going into college. And back then, YouTube had a shit ton of how to videos. And, I took about 6 hours to take his phone apart and put it all the way back together. But when I saw that Apple sign, when I pressed the lock button, I was like, ding, like, holy shit, I got an entire business plan on the back end of this because iPhone screens cost 25 bucks on Amazon at the time. And all the iPhone repair shops were charging $100. And I used to sell them for 60 bucks to fix iPhone screens. And I fixed 3, 4 iPhones a day. And literally, that's how I ate in college. My degree back in college was business with a concentration in real estate. Something I've always been passionate about is real estate investing. So at the time, the girl I was dating, her dad just started a house flipping business, and he took me under his wing, and we flipped about 10 houses together up in North Jersey, and it was an amazing hand in hand experience until 3 years later. Let's just keep it real. 3 years later, I cheated on his daughter and we broke up. And obviously, that whole house flipping relationship ended. But I got a ridiculous amount of value, learned a lot. And back to the playing field, I was a bench player. So I went to a small FCS D1 AA school and I rode the bench my freshman year, sophomore year, junior year. Didn't get on the field until I changed from a wide receiver to a tight end my senior year. First game my senior year, I got my first catch. Second game, got my first touchdown. Started every game after that. Got granted a red shirt senior year so I could have one more final year to come back and prove myself. Personally, for me, where everything changed mindset wise and just mentality wise. In between my senior year and my fifth year, I went on a missionary trip to Haiti. And our mission was to give back medicine to different churches and orphanages across the country. And while we were out there, to make a long story short, our compound got ambushed by 8 guys with guns. I got shot at point blank range. I got hog tied, so hands tied behind your back, feet tied at your ankles, hands tied to your feet, and then blindfolded. They went room to room, stole everything. Saw my life flash in front of my eyes, pissed myself, didn't even realize it. And after pretty much 45 minutes to an hour of hell, we wound up making it out of there. And I say that to say, outside of social media and all the stuff we're talking about, I think that everyone out there has some sort of inflection point in their life where it was their lowest point. And for me, that person was my lowest point. And what helps me go through every single day in terms of just, framing your mindset is not a day goes by where I don't think about it, but it puts me in a place of gratitude. I could lose a deal in real estate. Doesn't matter because I'm not dead. I could lose a client. Just lost a $6,000 a month client the other day. Doesn't matter because I'm not tied up in a third world country. And I say that to say is frame your hardships against your just daily, everyday struggles in that sense, because going through that is what honestly, that's how I made it to the NFL. Because that off season, now going from my senior year to my fifth year, that grind was real. When you're doing your gassers, doing your suicides, whatever you guys call them now in basketball, all I have to think about is, damn, this workout sucks, but I'm not tied up. Like, I'm good. And figuring out how to frame those struggles against your everyday process, it honestly helps. It's how I can move so fast. It's how I, keep a solid and a straight mindset. And in 2021, I always say is mental health is the real flex. Like everything that goes down starts up here. Going into my fifth year, I balled out again. Didn't really get any touchdowns or anything like that. I finished my college career with 3 touchdowns and under 1,000 yards. Not sure how much you guys know about football, but those stats really aren't that much. But in 2016 is when I started the training process to go to the NFL. So I went undrafted to the Arizona Cardinals in 2016. Quickly and surely realized that I didn't want to pay $2,000 a month for rent down in Tempe. So I got into the real estate space. I bought a 4 unit apartment building utilizing my FHA loan and lived in 1 unit, rented out the other 3, and lived for free, like while I was playing in the NFL. When I got cut from the Cardinals and went to the Detroit Lions, rented out that unit that I was living in and bought a duplex in Detroit, lived in one side, Airbnb the other side. While I was with the Lions as well, I got into the cannabis space and bought a 40-acre cannabis farm out in Michigan. Essentially leveraged the fact that one, I played in the NFL to get into the deal, but we bought 40 acres hedging that cannabis was going to go recreational in Michigan 8 months later. And when it did, we got about a 13x return of an offer on that land. And instead of cashing out, we've spent these last 2.5 years meeting with and touring the facilities of some of the best cannabis growers across the country to essentially become creating like a large Google campus cannabis grow operation, if that kind of makes sense. In 2018 is when I ultimately retired after playing with the Cardinals, Lions, and Giants. And when I look back on my career, my biggest regret is that I was wildly insecure. The content that you saw me putting out on Instagram or any of the platforms, if you just scroll back through my own account, is look at me, guys, I'm with Larry Fitzgerald. Look at me, I'm on the field with the ball in my hand. Look at me, I'm at the club with this A-list celebrity. Look at me, I'm doing this, versus actually documenting my real truths and my authentic self. And as soon as I retired, I started to actually take content seriously. And honestly, for me, it's when everything changed and I just had a completely different outlook. So in October of 2019, I launched a media agency called Perspective Global Media. We started off kind of doing work with different small businesses and brands. We pivoted into the podcast production space. And now on a day-to-day basis, we are a TikTok consulting agency. We work with different brands, individuals, athletes, and personalities, kind of across the board, helping them get activated and launched in the platform, and then helping them on the back end with post-production. The main reason why I'm so excited to be here and honestly just to talk to you guys is, one, I relate to you guys, heavily. I'm only 28 years old and I still remember exactly what it was like to be in your shoes. Coming from being that underdog, having a chip on your shoulder. I say D3 and 1AA are not too far from each other. But with this NIL coming right around the corner, I see a massive opportunity for David to beat Goliath. I think brand and content, especially when we're in the shit, like when we're athletes and we're caring about our day to day, getting on the court, getting our shots up, trying to be the best player we can be, is ultimately always put on the back burner. And why I'm here today is to say that content for you guys is why you guys can be dangerous. One, utilizing your time to actually create content and document your truths. And two, it's an ultimate opportunity to stand out. Most people, honestly, most players, especially when you get to more or less of the big stage and into the Power Five world, they're not putting a real emphasis on actually creating content. So my thesis and my opinion is, as this NIL comes around, hopefully in August when it fully goes through, these brands, yes, some of these big time players with hundreds of thousands of followers, they're going to do well. They're going to have some solid one-off deals here and there. But the D3 player that actually takes content serious and actually honestly listens to a few of the things and tactics that I'm about to tell you are going to be the ones who actually can run away with this and actually scale their brand in perpetuity And when their college career is over, if the NBA does not happen, allow it to actually be a smooth transition into what you're ultimately passionate about. I think most players, most athletes miss out and go through the struggle of you hear the story every day about life after sports. What is that transition like? That dark moment of trying to figure out what that identity actually is. And the main reason why that issue usually happens is because we're so wrapped up solely in our sport and we're so wrapped up in our head. And I wish I had me telling me this back when I was playing, because I was that same person. Like I said, I was flipping houses, had an iPhone repair business and all of that. Nobody knew about it. I had a cannabis farm, was buying apartment buildings when I was in the NFL, and nobody knew about it because I was scared. I had what's the word, imposter syndrome, just thinking that people wouldn't take me serious or think that, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about as it pertains to real estate and things like that. Um, but when it comes tactically, like TikTok, and I hesitate when I say TikTok because I 150% understand what it's like right now in your age realm of how corny it probably feels to be someone who actually takes TikTok seriously. Raise your hand if taking TikTok serious in your age group, in your circle, you'd be looked at as, all right, yo, what the fuck are you doing? Like, this is lame as shit. This is corny. You're like, why the fuck are you even on TikTok? Most of you guys are probably on it consuming, but for someone to actually take it serious, your peers will look at you like, the fuck are you doing? This is stupid. This is cringy and all that type of stuff. In my opinion, that's exactly where all of the opportunity lies. So you guys all understand real estate. If I told you right now, Portland's a huge city now. I wouldn't say five to 8 years ago, people weren't even thinking about Portland as a real estate market. If I told you, put all of you guys in a time machine back to the 1930s and told you you could buy prime downtown Portland real estate, would you buy it? Like, raise your hand if you'd buy it. Because it'd be pennies on the dollar. It wouldn't be anything. Or let's say it's not Portland. Let's say it's New York City. Let's say it's San Diego. Let's say it's Los Angeles. Let's say it's one of these major cities that wasn't much back in the 30s. I see that same exact opportunity from a real estate sense with TikTok, except it's digital real estate. Meaning, right now, because of what you just proved to me, that's the reason why most of you don't post. There is a massive supply and demand issue when it comes to content on TikTok, meaning how organic reach is. I don't know if any, raise your hand if you know what organic reach even means when it comes to social media. Does anybody know what it actually means? Like, as a, let me scroll through if anyone's actually raising their hand. So no one actually understands what organic reach, or what organic reach is. There's something called paid media, like amplified, like running ads and things like that. And then there's organic reach. Organic reach is the simple fact that you could start on TikTok this week and by the end of the week be at 20,000 followers with no one knowing you, no one on the platform knowing you, by having random people now following you. Organic reach means you didn't have to pay to actually have a ridiculous amount of exposure. So when you think of a platform like Instagram, raise your hand if you guys are old enough to remember when Instagram's timeline was in chronological order. You guys remember that? And then raise your hand if you remember when overnight that shit just changed and everything was segmented. You didn't get as many likes and things just changed. So when you think of organic reach, there's eyes. So how many people are actually consuming, watching content like TikTok? And there's pipes. How much content is filling those pipes for those eyes to consume that content? What happened with Instagram years ago when the timelines changed from chronological to segmented is the pipes got full and the attention of those eyes went down. There's too much content for the minimal amount of eyes on the platform. When you think of TikTok, it's the exact opposite. There's a ridiculous amount of eyes on the platform, a whole bunch of people consuming, barely anybody posting content to fill those pipes for all of those millions of people. And you guys just proved it yourself and onto the reason as to why you don't post. And it's the reason as to why everyone your age doesn't post. And it's the reason why I'm so dangerous on the platform, because I'm not in college, a close-knit setting where your insecurities are just ultimately become exposed. Because I'm not in college, but I understand social media. and I understand how to post-produce content, I can move fast because I don't have to deal with the insecurities that you guys have to deal with, because it makes 150% sense. If I was in your shoes, I probably would. I was like, Vine was out when I was in college, and I posted one time on Vine, and it was a bullshit post of me walking to my practice facility, boom, 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 like 3 things on like a 7-second post, and that was it. But the people who took Vine seriously, I don't know if you just saw, Jake Paul just fought Nate Robinson the other day. Logan Paul is about to fight fucking Floyd Mayweather this year. Only thing that can do something like that is brand. And when you're talking about organic reach and eyes and how much of consumption is happening today on a platform like TikTok, when you put the 3 major platforms side by side, so we got Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Facebook's daily average consumption time right now is 12 minutes a day. Instagram's daily average consumption time is 25 minutes a day. TikTok's daily average consumption time is 85 minutes a day. Back to the David and Goliath theory. David only can beat the Goliath if David acts like David. The way David can act like David in the year 2021 is to actually take these platforms seriously. And when it comes to TikTok, right now, the most recent statistic that's out right now is 80%, 80% of every post that you put out, the video views that you're getting on that post are coming from people who don't follow you. 80%. That means like if you post on Instagram and you got 100 likes, 80 of those likes are coming from people who don't even know you. From an organic reach standpoint, that's the opportunity. So to layer something on top of that, if you are dangerous enough or good enough on editing videos, and I'm going to give you an example of the type of videos you guys should be putting out. If you can post 10 times a day on TikTok, you should. Like I've been posting 1 time a day for like the last 2 weeks. And then Super Bowl weekend, I like to just A/B test and see what works and what doesn't work. Super Bowl weekend, I posted 5 times a day, 3 days in a row. 1 time a day for like weeks straight. You can see like on my analytics, 100 new followers, 200 new followers, 100 new followers, like on a daily basis. Post 5 times a day, 5,000 new followers, 6,000 new followers, 4,000 new followers on a daily type of basis, because more people are being exposed to my content. And when you compare these platforms, like, oh, TikTok is just a fad. One, just look at Vine. Vine was a fad. The people who built brands there made it happen. But history repeats itself. Meaning, Facebook, you guys are too young to remember this. Facebook started out just as an app for, not even for Ivy League students, for Harvard students. And then it became an app for Ivy League students. Then it became an app for college students. And then it became an app for our grandmas. Instagram started off as an app that was solely a photo editing platform. You literally would upload a picture, throw a filter on it, download it, send it to somebody, or then you would upload it to Facebook because you didn't post it socially on Instagram. TikTok started off as an app like it was Musically, and even the early days of TikTok, it's a dancing app. Whole bunch of kids, whole bunch of girls dancing, and most of us see that stuff and we're like, either, oh, she's hot, or oh, this is super cringy because this dude is trying to dance and this is ridiculous and I can't see myself doing this same type of shit. TikTok, so I do I have monthly conversations with TikToks when there are people who run their algorithm, and they've strategically adjusted their algorithm because they don't want to be generalized as a dancing platform. They strategically adjusted their algorithm to sway more towards informational, educational, and compelling storytelling type of content. So where the opportunity lies is to those people who don't dance all day and people who can actually put out compelling type of content. What type of content should you be putting out as an athlete? Gary Vee says it best. Document, don't create. When you think of creating, fuck, I need to make a TikTok video. What am I going to say? Let me blah, 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 blah. Forget about that. All of us are inherently special. Like right now, the odds to be a human being is 1 in 400 trillion, meaning you should be a rock or a leaf or a toilet, whatever. But the simple fact that you beat those odds, 1 in 400 trillion, which means you would have won the lottery, I don't even know how many times, which means you would have gotten struck by lightning, I don't know how many times. The simple fact that you beat those odds inherently makes you special. Most of us are too insecure to document and show those special sides of us that no one else knows. From an opportunity standpoint, and this is before I even get tactical and more into the weeds, where my mindset changed is now I have a 2-year-old daughter, and I would love all of you guys to frame your mindset this way in some way, shape, or form. Start to think about legacy. If I told all of you guys that your great grandpa had a TikTok account, I can promise you that you guys would all watch every single second, every minute. You would rewatch it again, rewatch it again, and rewatch it again, because you would learn so many different things from your great great grandma or your great great grandpa and the content that they were talking about as they're going through their real life struggles and their real world, whatever they're trying to do. Now, as young men who are playing college basketball right now in the middle of a global pandemic, which is going to be a stamp on history forever, think about your great 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 grandkids. You won't be alive to meet them, but all of us here on this Zoom call, we are all going to be the patriarchs of our distant bloodline, because nothing before us exists digitally. We are going to be the top of all of our family trees. And when I say that, now think about the content that you're actually putting out. Most of us are putting out the bullshit, fake PR version of ourselves that, if like history will watch one day, our great 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 grandkids will watch and see one day. Consider that. Think about that type of, like, this is being recorded right now. So hi Lucy. Like, Lucy's my 2-year-old daughter. I know for a fact one day, like, I'm getting the chills like talking about it, but like, she's gonna watch this one day. So think about that as you're thinking about and considering content, as you're insecure, as you're holding back on what type of content you want to put out. Like, fuck the people who are going to judge you at your school. Fuck the people from high school who are going to judge you. Fuck the entire audience. Literally just think about your kids and your grandkids and their kids, and then started putting out content, if that kind of makes sense. When I think about the actual types of content and pillars of content that I would live in if I was playing college basketball right now in 2021, two things I would start with ASAP. One is simple day in the life type of content. And I'll share my screen and give you an example of a simple day in the life vlog that I've made before in the past, that just walks you right through it. Like, get to a place where it only takes you 8 to 12 minutes to actually post produce it. The reason why most people are terrible on TikTok is because it takes them an hour and a half to make an edit for one video. And then when that video gets 127 views, it feels like you got punched in your stomach. Get to a place where you can only, where it takes you 8 to 10 minutes to actually post produce, and then you become wildly unemotional about that content that you just put out there. Day in the life content does unreal, does amazing. Two, all of you guys are subject matter experts on basketball. When you guys watch basketball, like on TV, whether it's a college game, an NBA game, or any type of game, you have a completely different perspective than the other people that you're sitting around when you guys are watching it. You know that that's a triangle offense and they're doing XYZ. You know that that's a box and one. You know that they're doing blah, 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 blah. You know why that was a good play, how that guy went off the ball on a screen and did XYZ. The best way to communicate your subject matter expertise on basketball is in a green screen type of fashion, whether it's showing your own plays in PowerPoint presentation mode, like I'm showing you XYZ, or whether it's showing Steph Curry's night the other night, LeBron James's night the other night, James Harden's night the other night, Giannis's night the other night, any and everybody, because being in the breaking news business is huge for you, especially if basketball is something that you're actually passionate about. Most of you guys mentioned how passionate you are about sports. TikTok gives you the opportunity to be the Stephen A. Smith of TikTok, because Stephen A. Smith doesn't exist on TikTok. So when we're talking green screen type of content, and I'll show you guys the X's and O's and how simple it is to actually post produce something like that. It's wildly simple. And then lastly, it's working out. Like, you guys offer a unique perspective by being an elite college athlete, showing what your actual process is. But then it comes a layer of self-awareness over it. What can you stomach? What are you actually comfortable doing? Like me personally, I put out a bunch of content. Rarely do I put out a video of me working out. That's just me personally. But the content that I put out, it's me talking about real estate. It's me talking about entrepreneurship. It's me breaking down my own football plays from the NFL and college. It's me being breaking news for NFL. Any like a play just happened, boom, I'm gonna add my 2 cents on it. AB just shook the honey badger in the Super Bowl. I can make a piece of content, a green screen piece of content, talking about the route, talking about how Tom Brady and Tyrann Mathieu are now talking shit to each other, adding my deeper layer of context. But because there's no one else here on TikTok doing it, I get all of this real estate because no one else is there. And like, let me actually show you. I'd rather show you guys a couple of quick X's and O's on how to post produce content fast on TikTok. And then I really want to get into Q&A because I'd rather go much deeper with you guys than talking high level. And honestly, while I'm doing this, if you have questions, just start to consider them, start to think of them, and don't be on some I'm shy because my teammates are here, so I'm not gonna ask questions type shit. So let's say we're talking basketball, and let's say I'm gonna pull up a football clip because that's what my entire phone is filled with. But let's say you want to essentially make a green screen piece of content breaking down the details of a specific play. There's an app called InShot. It's freemium, so you can. It's free as long as you want it to be free, and if you want more or less of the features, you can pay for it. But I believe I still have the freemium version. So I'm literally going to hit new, and this is being recorded, so your coach can send this back to you guys, so you guys can actually go deeper here. This is how it would work. So let's say this is a piece of basketball content. In reality, this is a clip, I believe. Yeah, it's a clip from the Super Bowl when the dude walked up to Tariq Hill and gave him the peace sign. So literally, how you produce content for TikTok on InShot is first you're going to hit this button called Canvas. On TikTok, you want your content to be a 9:16 aspect ratio. So you already see that the TikTok logo here on the bottom right corner. Now with your finger, once you're in canvas mode, I can take this video and drag it wherever I want it to be. So you're going to take this video, let's say this is a clip from the Pacers game or whatever, or it's an actual clip from your game you had last year, or a game from whenever of you hitting somebody with a hezzy to a crossover to dunking on somebody or something of that sort. And you're actually breaking down your mindset on what you were doing on that exact play. You take that clip, you throw it up top because essentially your head is going to be in this area where that play button is. You're going to adjust this background, throw black on there. Pretty simple. Hit this check mark. Always remember to turn the volume off because you're going to be adding your 2 cents over it. And now you've got, this is only a 7-second video, but let's say, depending on how long this video is, let's say it was a minute and 14-second clip and you need to take some stuff out of it. All you have to do is this button split here. I could split right there and I could split right there if I needed to. And let's say I want to delete that 1 second. Boom, quick delete. Let's say I wanted to take the front half off and I could delete that 0.9 seconds there. Boom. So now what I would do is I'm going to save this top right corner. And we're going to go over to TikTok. And on TikTok, essentially what we're going to do is new post, plus sign. I like to take this over to 60 seconds. And we're going to hit the effects button here on the left by the red button. This button now right here that's highlighted, we're going to click on that. And our video we just edited, 5.7 seconds, is going to be right here, first video. Essentially now it's up to you to add your own color commentary to the post. So you hit next, and it's literally blah, 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 whatever 2 cents you want to add. This happened, that happened, made a 3, did this. And now I look fucking crazy here. This is now you have a post. From here, like quick just tip on post producing content on TikTok. I'm not going to go deep in the weeds here. One, focus heavily on the first 3 seconds of every post you put out. Two, don't have words just sitting there. So let's say the first word was Chiefs versus Bucks. Most people would take this when you hit set duration and start it at 0.0 seconds. If these are the first words that you want in your video, slide it over a couple frames to about zero point 0.5, because as simple, to put it simply, when someone's scrolling on the For You page, subconsciously our eyes are attracted to things in motion, not things that are still. So essentially now when this pops up on someone's For You page, these words are going to actually pop at you versus just sitting there when you scroll to it. So now this Chiefs versus Bucks seems small, but it looks like this. Boom. And then let's say you want to add some GIFs and things like that. I always say try and find as many excuses possible, whatever 2 cents you want to add, to drop blah 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 blah, whatever GIFs. So I take this and I probably put it at like 0.8 or something of that sort. So now the first 2 seconds looks like this. Boom, boom. But the more you do, the more you ultimately layer. Let me get out of this. The more you ultimately layer, the more compelling the piece of content looks. So to give you an example, I'll show you my last two posts. I'm just going to show you the first 3 seconds. Pay attention to how many things pop. Super Bowl 55, goods on goods, AB versus the Honey Badger. We call this a whip route or a shake route. Shows how much of it. Super Bowl 55, Bucks go with back-to-back screens to counter the Chiefs blitzing. This time they go with Gronk to the flat. Bucks. As a player, who wins MVP? So we're on the eve of. So as you see, the first 3 seconds heavily populated with as many words, GIFs, and trying to get the thesis of whatever I'm trying to talk about across. That's how I would focus on green screen content. And just to go a little bit deeper on that day in the life content I was telling you guys about and how simple it is, I'm going to give you one example of one of my little vlogs that you guys can do every single day. And like back to reps, TikTok is all about reps. Quantity is the only thing you can control. The quality of your content is ultimately subjective to that end user of that person who's consuming your content. So this is what those daily vlogs look like. And this is done all on TikTok. Morning dumps used to be peaceful until I became a dad. Vlog 6, NFL tight end, entrepreneur, started the day off watching her favorite show, True. Took it down for a quick cat nap while I got all my Zoom calls in from potential clients to employees to admins to more employee calls. Shout out to Zoom. After Lucy woke up, jumped around on the couch a little bit, played around, played with her Thomas the Train toy set for a little bit. After she took it down for the night, I may have dozed off a little bit, got my final call in. Morning dumps used to be peaceful. But it's literally as simple as that. And like that video had 50,000 views on it. And it's like you'd be missing out on 50,000 people being exposed to your content without putting out a rep like that when all you're doing is documenting your day-to-day life anyway. Because on TikTok, you can record in 2 seconds at a time, 3 seconds at a time, 4 seconds at a time, put it back in your drafts, and then essentially mute the entire day and then add a voiceover like you just saw me doing that last piece of content there. And like most people with me just try and write me off and go, oh, he's a pro athlete. Of course he's crushing it on TikTok. Like easy for him in that sense. But it's just untrue. You know, I had 6,000 followers on Instagram when I first started on TikTok. This is post NFL career. My first 6 months on TikTok, I literally only went from 0 to 55 followers because I only took my best videos from Instagram, downloaded them, and just posted them to TikTok. Did awful. What changed for me, and my best advice for all of you guys, is take 5 to 10 hours over the next month and only consume basketball and sports creator type of content. Only consume it. Understand the contextual nuances of what they're doing. Like watch it, like watch TikToks like you're watching film. Like just check out most of my stuff. I put out mostly sports content anyway. Just pay attention to all of the contextual nuances because it'll teach you more than anything. Um, But essentially, I took 5 to 10 hours, only consumed sports content, real estate content, entrepreneur content, put my head down for 30 days, posted once a day for 30 days. In my first week, I went from 55 followers to 22,000 followers. In my first month, went from 55 followers to 82,000 followers. And within 6 weeks, I was at 100,000 followers. Just treated the platform with pure practicality. And I say that to say that anyone can do this. It's just about, like, you can control what you can control, and the main thing you can control is quantity. So start getting those muscles worked of simply posting on TikTok. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do, to overcome that insecurity, to overcome those 10 people that you're worried about in the back of your mind as to the reason why you're not posting. But when you can overcome that, that's the reason how and why you now, as a D3 athlete, can make yourself marketable to these brands that are out there and are going to be looking for athletes to actually work with. And then that's also going to make your transition now post playing basketball 100 times smoother, because you're going to grow and expand your network within the niches of the things you are actually passionate about. And like, I don't want to keep rambling on from a high level standpoint. Like, I'd love to now bring it way down and open this up to just Q&A and honestly ask tactical questions about, hey, I'd like to make content about this, but I don't know where the fuck to start. Or, hey, how do I do XYZ? Or honestly, anything under the sun. I'm an open book. But one, I appreciate you guys' just attention and attentiveness for hopping on something like this late. But two, would love to open this up to some Q&A. Questions?
So much info, man. I love it. I'm taking notes. What do you guys got? Who's first? Somebody raise a hand or just unmute yourself and ask a question.
When you got started on TikTok, when did you, so you said you saw the biggest growth within like the first 7 days or whatever when you started posting every day.
Mm-hmm.
What content were you putting out prior to that? Have you been putting out the same content since you started?
Like, prior to my growth, I was taking videos like from Instagram that had, like, you've seen videos on Instagram that have like an upper third title and like subtitles and stuff like that. I would just download those videos and post it on TikTok. And it wasn't native to TikTok. It looked like a narc showing up to a college party. Like, it wasn't contextual to TikTok, if that makes sense. Where everything changed, my first videos when I started crushing it, is one, I was making sure those videos were full screen. So like selfie mode, 9:16 mode. Two, I was focusing on those first 3 seconds. I was noticing from other creators that they were having things pop kind of everywhere. Three, I went heavy on green screen. I put out no green screen content before that. And then once I took those 5 to 10 hours, I started messing with InShot, because some people, you see it on TikTok all the time with the green screen content where it's the full screen and people kind of have to like move out of the way to show what's behind them. I like the InShot version because it's right above my head and it's so much cleaner. It's not like staticky, if that makes sense. And I can literally just teach it like it's a PowerPoint. Like, right.
What other content should we be posting on other social media?
There we go. 2020, right? That's honestly everything that changed for me. It was going deep on those pillars and just blindly posting on a day-to-day basis. My first video that month like got like 636,000 views. The next one got like 5,000. The next one got like 100,000. The next one got like 1.5 million. And then it's just momentum from there, if that kind of makes sense. Does that answer your full question? Hold on. We got an actual written question. Written question by Noah. What did I learn while playing football that helped translate into an entrepreneurial lifestyle? What I learned from football, I think it's mainly just the discipline aspect. Just being an athlete instills that natural discipline aspect, but it honestly makes it harder as an entrepreneur, because once you're an entrepreneur, the discipline is on you. You don't have a coach saying do X, Y, and Z, show up here, or there's going to be consequences. If I'm feeling off or I'm feeling down, or if I don't have the juice that day and I don't show up to my 10 Zoom calls, that's on me. That's my L. That's not, oh, I'm going to run suicides the next day. That's just going to screw up your own bank account on the back end. From an entrepreneurial standpoint, I'd probably say I was always an entrepreneur. I think entrepreneur in the year 2021 is more or less of a buzzword. And people are almost being tricked or marketed in to be an entrepreneur, because everyone out there, it seems like it's the cool thing to do. I think entrepreneurship is just a natural itch, and you either have it or you don't have it. But I also think there's a lot of people who are entering risky territory by being convinced that entrepreneurship is just this glamorous, fancy lifestyle and fuck the man, I'm going to work for myself and all that type of stuff. So entrepreneurship for me is, I knew I was going to be an entrepreneur since I was in 5th grade cutting grasses down the street. But when I was in 5th grade, we didn't call it entrepreneurship. More questions? And you guys, I'd 100% rather you guys ask than type, unless you have some issue with typing, just because it just feels so much more human than.
Let's go, Parker. What do you got? Unmute.
I got you. Aside from TikTok, how can we market ourselves through the other social media apps like Instagram, Twitter, Facebook? What content should we look towards? Especially since we're about to finish, college and universities, kind of looking into marketing ourselves for jobs and employers.
150%. I would say don't sleep on TikTok, because your employers are going to be there. But 2, LinkedIn. Most of you guys, I'm sure, historically have been treating LinkedIn like it's just this resume party. How do I show up in this suit and tie, perfect prep school version of myself? Don't do that. LinkedIn, back to organic reach, when you guys all raised your hand and didn't know what organic reach was, LinkedIn has damn near the same amount of organic reach as TikTok, except there's actual real data points to back it. So right now there's 675 million daily active users on LinkedIn. Back to eyes and pipes. So that's how many eyes are on the content. That's how much attention is on the platform. Of the 675 million people going on LinkedIn every day, only 3 million people post content on a weekly basis. So right now there's 3 million people making content for 675 million people. That's organic reach. That's supply and demand. There's a supply issue when it comes to content on LinkedIn. That's how my very first post on LinkedIn, I had 300 connections and 55,000 people saw that post. My next post got 17 views. My next post got 51 views. My next post got 31 views. My next post got 88,000 views. LinkedIn, and like the people on LinkedIn, damn near all of them. You can essentially work with them in some way, shape, or form. Most people on LinkedIn are showing up in a shirt and tie. The opportunity on LinkedIn is to show up in your sweatpants. Be yourself. The same way, if you guys are on Twitter, I put out my tweets on LinkedIn, just in a typed out version, like it's a Facebook, old school Facebook status type shit. LinkedIn, the content I would put out, in my opinion, it's, if you can create that solid day in the life type of content on on TikTok, I would post produce it, go back to InShot. You guys remember how we put that 9:16 aspect ratio on that video on, what's the word? On, we're here. You guys got some time. Let me just show you guys. This is if you guys take my advice and actually put day in the life type content out on TikTok, go back to InShot, take that video you just made for TikTok and essentially do this. So let's say, let me find a TikTok video that's already made. Here we go. Oh, that didn't work. Nope, that didn't work. Jeez. Okay, it's gonna act like this. Let's see if this will work. Okay, here we go. So let's say that this is, I know this is a terrible example, but this is a 9:16 aspect ratio. This is a full-blown TikTok video of your day in the life type of content. What you would do now is go to Canvas on this piece of content, and now where it says it's already in 9:16, you're going to change it to 1:1, because LinkedIn content just over indexes and does 100 times better when it's in a 1:1 aspect ratio. So you add a background to it. I wouldn't do it all white like this. I'd probably throw it in gray, or I would just go full blown all black or something of that sort. But literally, to first get those muscles worked on LinkedIn is do that, if that kind of makes sense. doing that at scale. LinkedIn is it's just about reps, and it's just about doing the same thing. Consume other athletes. Most of them aren't doing that well on LinkedIn. Just go to honestly, just go to my LinkedIn account and just look at every post I've ever put out. And like that's how I would start. If any of you guys have a podcast or consider, I know one of you guys put in the questionnaire you have a podcast, take the micro content from those podcasts and post produce it for LinkedIn, meaning don't put the 45-minute episode on LinkedIn, put 2 minutes of that video on LinkedIn. Then it's like allow the back to documenting and not creating, allow these platforms to be your outlets for your thoughts. Like week one of or week whatever of this week 6 of 2021, like even if you're typing out 3 sentences on how this virtual week of being a D3 college basketball player went, put it out there. Like put all of it out there and you'll figure out what's actually going to work. And like back to self-awareness, maybe you don't like video content, then get into written content. Maybe you don't like written content, put out more pictures. Maybe you don't like pictures, put out carousels where you're telling stories through pictures with words and not actual photos, if that kind of makes sense. Figuring out what works the best ultimately for you. But LinkedIn, I would like, yes, Instagram's cool, but it's just the cool kids table in the lunchroom. You're not going to grow really on Instagram unless you have a Sports Center top 10 play and everyone goes to your Instagram and follows you. That's really the only organic way to grow on Instagram in 2021. Besides that, it's treating LinkedIn and TikTok as serious as a heart attack. I saw Uriel, you dropped a question in the comments as well. If you want to ask that, that be great. I'm trying to find Uriel on this.
Yeah, so it was pretty long, but I've always, well, I've seen some things about, entrepreneurship or how people always talk about like investing or stocks, things like that. And one thing that came to mind that I saw that was really interesting was multiple people always brought up incomes. Like it's smart to have multiple incomes, streaming in money from different things. And I always, as I like grew older, I guess, from elementary school, middle school, things like that, I went from thinking, like, oh, you can play professionally and that's going to be your moneymaker. And uh, right now, looking at it, I'm like, it's a possibility, but it's a very small possibility. So I started looking at other things, and one thing that always crossed my mind was, besides the career I want to go into or like physical therapy, I always thought it would be smart to go back to school and, become a mechanic, because I know mechanics are always going to be needed. And I know I've seen multiple people that they open up shops and they keep expanding. And that's a second income for them. Same thing with what you said, like cannabis or properties and renting it out, things like that. I always thought it was smart. And those are things that I'm going to keep in mind and try and get myself into. But is there anything else that you think, I guess, we can do or I can do as I guess like future plan?
It's a great question. For me, it's figuring out what you're passionate about first. Money can't be your North Star. It's not sustainable long term. Like, don't become a mechanic because it sounds like it's a niche where you can make a lot of money. Don't get into real estate because it feels like it's a niche where you can make a lot of money. Don't get into cannabis because it sounds like it's a niche because you can make a lot of money. Um, Adjust your North Star into success in being happiness. Figure out what makes you happy. Figure out what your passion is. And then what we can do is reverse engineer what that passion is and figure out a way to monetize it on the back end. The easiest way to do that is to put out content and actually build a brand so you can create leverage. If that, I know that was a lot. Does that kind of make sense, Uriel?
Yeah, it does. It does.
From your own perspective, let's go deep here. What are you passionate about? Are you passionate about like cars and being a mechanic or no?
I've always been passionate about cars because my dad was a mechanic, but I always try and get involved with other things. I don't really like just having one hobby or one thing that I'm passionate about. I recently started getting back into reading different books, trying to sketch, trying to learn new things, so, but I guess, yeah, cars is like a huge hobby to me.
But when you like, so when you say that cars, reading books and sketching, like to me, how I see that, those are three amazing content pillars that you can go 100 times deeper in. And when you go deeper in it now, it's a lot easier for you to monetize a year from now. Meaning, if you take books serious, there's an athlete, his name is Amobi Akugo. Check him out. I'll drop it in the in the chat. His name's Amobi. Damn it, Akugo. Damn, I spelled that terribly wrong. Amobi Okugo. He's a professional soccer player. I think he plays for FC San Antonio, I want to say. He's huge into books as well and reading. So he does every night, he goes on Instagram Live, and right now he's reading Robert Greene's 48 Laws of Power. And essentially he does a different law every night for like 15 minutes. He comes on, talks about, just read about this law. Here's my thoughts. Other people will hop in, talk to him, chat about that, add their own 2 cents. He adds his 2 cents. But how I would go about something like that if I'm a college athlete is demonstrate that. Like, you knowing that you're passionate about books should take an hour tonight or 30 minutes tonight. I literally type in books on TikTok, because you probably haven't done that before, and watch how people create compelling content around the books that they're reading on TikTok. And you reverse engineer that into yourself and what you're comfortable with, and if you can even post produce content like that, and do that. So it's back to documenting, don't creating. If you're reading books once a week, 3 times a week, 4 times a week, there's probably an angle on how you can put content out with that. If you're okay with that, it's back to self-awareness. If you like to sketch, literally just putting your camera up and just letting it sit there, back to documenting while you're sketching once a week, once every other week, every day, whenever, and time lapsing those sketches. If you're not insecure about people seeing the final product of that, that's another piece of content. And then when it comes to cars, if you already like cars, you already know a whole bunch of things about cars, putting how-to videos out on cars right now on TikTok are unreal. Like, your average player, raise your hand in here if you guys know how to change a tire. That's not everybody. That's the punchline. Not many people know how to change a tire. Not many people know how to simply change their oil. Not many people know how to change brake pads on a car. Things like that are probably, you can do it like the back of your hand. Start putting out content like that, because think of yourself as a media company, but Uriel media company and a basketball player. So media company meaning putting out content around everything that you do, plus you're a D3 basketball player. And like doing that, honestly, like going deep on those 3 pillars, you'll figure out, one, what you actually like to do, because you'll be putting out content on that. And then you'll also figure out what the audience actually likes in that standpoint. And you'll figure out how to create community on the back end. Like, there's no reason why you can't, in the next 6 weeks, create a book club. Like, it's so doable. Like, I'll be in your book club. I love reading. But like, that's how I would go about something like that, if that makes sense. Because if you do that and you take it serious for the next year, there might be monetizable actions on the back end. But if you try and monetize and think money up front, you're not going to have any success with that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
No problem, bro. More questions?
I have one kind of short, quick
What's up?
one. So I've been getting into car photography because I'm like in Southern California. I'm pretty big into the car scene, and I don't have access to do that here because I don't have my own car and I can't go to car meets and whatnot. So what would be a way to start building that brand now for when I get home in the summer when I'm really able to pursue it?
100%. So one, you can pull up to the car meet without a car. That's
Well,
all.
I'm just saying, like, I don't have a way to get there is the only thing.
Gotcha. How far are they from you?
Most of them here are in like Portland,
Like, how far is that?
like 45, 50 minutes.
Gotcha. If transportation's an issue, the angle I would go about it to build leverage, if like, you know, for a fact there's no way under the sun that you can get into Portland. If there's no way under the sun for you to get into Portland, me personally, I would start a podcast or interview-based show around cars. because it's such a super niche. Like, one, it's a way for you to be like, one man's opinion. I firmly believe that if you took the next month, 2 months, and interviewed 20 to 25 people in Portland who are in that supercar car world, which you could easily reverse engineer and find, instead of reaching out, trying to pick their brains and things like that, which people just don't respond well to, ask them to interview them on your show. Call it whatever you want to call it under the sun. Everyone has a story and no one's listening. And when you provide a platform for someone to tell their story on, they tend to love you forever. So I say that to say, by 20 episodes, you'll probably find someone who lives pretty close to you that'll probably give you a ride to the next car meetup, because those people will be friends with you afterwards. But you'll also be building a brand within the car world. And it's because you can do it from the comfort of your bedroom like this at 8 o'clock at night, Pacific time. You can scale it. Like, there's no reason why, like, you can keep the interviews to 10 minutes, 15 minutes, have 3 specific questions that you really, really like that you want to ask people, and put it out there. And then the 2.0 of that answer, like, I just said that. How do you react to something like that? Does that sound like something you'd actually do? Or you're like, it sounds cool, but I'm no shot I'm fucking doing that. Like, how does that register when I say that?
For me, it's definitely a possibility, because right now I have a shitload of downtime.
So how I would trip the 2.0 of that is not even take your phone. The last question of those interviews, like, end the interview, and you're going to ask one more question, but you're going to ask them to answer it in selfie mode. Meaning they're going to take their phone out and they're going to answer it. Like, tell me about the best car you've ever driven, or the dopest. I don't know shit about cars, to be honest. So tell me something about something. And they're going to say all types of, you car fuckers always like to drop all types of slang that no one else can understand. When they do that, like, back to TikTok, I would then, let me show you something on that's really cool that InShot does. Is you're going to take that answer, because Zoom content just doesn't do that well on TikTok, in my opinion, because you have to zoom in on it and it just doesn't look compelling, in my opinion. But what you can do is, let's say this video right here, minute 43, because I'm giving you this piece of advice is because this is exactly what I do. I don't give any advice that I don't take. I'm a practitioner. This is me on a podcast last night. I always keep my phone on the side. So any of you guys, if you guys are guests on podcasts, always have your phone at the ready to record every answer in 9:16 mode, because what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to turn this into a piece of TikTok content. I'm going to overlay pictures and B-roll over this to make it look compelling. So let's say this is a video about cars, right? What I'm going to now do, what's dope about InShot, is I can put this thing that says PIP, stands for picture in picture. I can now take a piece of let's say that this video, which is my daughter dancing earlier, is a car video. Like, he's talking about I don't know, I can't speak in car slang, something Camaro. But now you go on YouTube and you screen record a Camaro video. You can now layer that video over that video like this. I'm going to turn the volume off. But now this piece of content looks like this. Let's say he leaves in 3 years. Yeah. Patty Mahomes is only 5 years, 6 years in the league. But you be honest to talk. Another 15 years. So, like, you can, like, I can now take this and I could split it and I could slide this over a little bit, and now it looks like this. I'm talking, whatever. He's talking, back to the car, split it again if you feel like it. Whatever the compelling content you want to put, whether it's pictures, whether it's videos, it allows you to tell stories very fast. Like, I mean, how long did that just take me to do bam, bam, bam? That's the punchline. By being able to do that with every person that comes on that car show, you're going to build your brand in the car world. Like, there's no telling where that can go, if that makes sense. But it starts with actually doing. Just ideas make. That answer your question? Or more questions?
Nick, what do you got? Nick Drynan, you got a question? What do you got for Hakeem?
You said earlier you had like 10 Zoom calls. So what's your biggest advice on making connections and making sure those connections are positive and keeping them long lasting and beneficial for yourself?
When you say, I can't remember what context I said when I said I had 10 Zoom calls.
You're just like, a day in the life, I'm not feeling it, and I have these 10 Zoom calls and I don't get my all, and they're not going to work out.
Got you. You're asking me now how to make connections that are meaningful. What do you like to do?
I want to become a financial advisor. So
Do you know what you should do yesterday?
With people. Huh?
Do you plan on living in Oregon?
No.
Do you know where you plan on living post college and when you're a financial advisor or no?
I'm from Spokane, Washington. So my initial thought now is being in Seattle for the first couple of years.
So you know what best piece of advice, if you take this, like, please take this advice. Yesterday, start the Seattle Small Business Podcast. Sounds fucking super left field. Why should you start the Seattle Small Business Podcast? That's literally how you're going to meet every single business owner in Seattle. So by the time you're done playing basketball, you have 78 business owners in Seattle that are in your Rolodex that are warm. The same people that you can work with, whether it's working with their individual portfolio or whether it's helping them on the employee sides with their employees 401k, with their employees, I don't know all the bullshit that goes into it, but like my media company used to literally do podcasts for financial advisors. The main reason why I'm telling you to start the Seattle Small Business Podcast is because the people you interview are going to be the people that ultimately could become clients of yours. Instead of if you reached out right now cold, or let's say this is 2 years from now when you graduate, now you're a financial advisor. If you reach out to a small business owner cold saying, hey, Mrs. Small Business Owner, would love to sit down and talk to you about your own retirement plan and your employees' retirement plan and all that, they're going to say, fuck off. It's COVID. Like, I'm busy as shit. Like, that's real life. But if you ask that same business owner, hey, Mr. Small Business Owner, love the brand you've built, love what you guys are doing, would love to have you come on my show called the Seattle Small Business Podcast. Oh, I've never been on a podcast. I'd love to be on your show. Doing that at scale, like, one, because there's no ask right now. There's definitely no ask right now because you're not a financial advisor yet. Now it's up to you, because you will own the IP of that network. It's up to you on how warm you can keep that network. Meaning every 10 episodes, you should have are you 21 yet?
20.
Okay, when you're 21, ship them all a bottle of wine every 10 episodes, and then literally have a happy hour. And now you've got 10 small business owners in Seattle powwowing, but you brought them together. And then episodes 11 through 20, same thing. Episodes 21 through 30, same. After you get to episode 50, that's a mini conference if you want it to be. You get to episode 100, that's a real conference. If you keep that network warm, if you're documenting what each person does, now you're introducing the guy from episode 2 to the guy from episode 12, the guy from episode 14 to the guy from episode 33. Have you ever heard of something called the high school party rule? Back in high school, junior year came around, and someone who was a C when it comes to popularity had the luxury of their parents going away on the weekends. So when that happened, they would host parties. All of the A's, the popular kids, would show up. They brought the drinks, the girls, the DJ, the music, they brought everything. By graduation, that kid who was a C became an A because he hosted the party. Right now, you don't know shit about being a financial advisor. You don't know shit about the struggles and the ups and downs about Seattle business owners. But by hosting the party, all you're going to be doing the next 2 years, 3 years until you graduate is building leverage, because you're not asking for anything yet. He who holds their breath the longest is who's ultimately going to win. But now, on top of the leverage you've built because you've interviewed all these people, now let's talk content. The main question you should be asking each business owner, hey, Mr. Business Owner, it's been a crazy fucking year. Tell me about how you guys have pivoted in COVID, on how you guys have stayed afloat tactically. That answer, that 2-minute answer, that 3-minute answer, now post-produced for LinkedIn, at scale, for meaning every person who comes on your show, you do that, it's going to bring a lot of value to a lot of people on LinkedIn. Now you're building community. Now you graduate, and now you pull the gun out the holster and you start shooting. Now you have a Rolodex of literally however many people you actually just like, it's up to you on how, because it's very practical when you start a podcast. Meaning tomorrow you could get your first yes on you could fucking cold call a business. XYZ pizza shop in Seattle saying, hey, can I talk to the owner? He's out right now. Hey, can you give him a call back whenever? I want to interview him for my show. Of course. Boom. Hey, can I talk to the owner? Oh, it's me. Hey, I've got this show. Would love to have you on as a guest. Blah, blah, blah. When's a good time? Next week. Boom. Done. 7 minutes. Like, shoot first, aim later. You'll figure all this shit out on the back end. Start a show called the Seattle Small Business Podcast. That's like, if you take anything out of anything I just said, do that. And I promise you will come back and thank me in 3 years. Does that answer your question, Nick?
Yeah, thank you. That was good.
Facts, truth, Nick. Do that. All of you guys, man. This is just, I'll tell you, there's interviews. There's people that will sit down with you right now as a college kid, like Hakeem said, that won't give you the time of day when you graduate. But because you're a
100%.
student and because you're not asking for anything right now, and just pick their brain, feed their ego, right? You're an extremely successful entrepreneur in the Seattle market. Tell me a little bit about how you did. People love to talk about themselves. So reach out to people now in the field that you want to get into post-graduation. So that's gold right there. If you guys don't take anything from this, I'm gonna be a little disappointed, because I wish I could go back and have all that digital real estate podcasts of me in college talking to entrepreneurs and business owners and basketball coaches. Some of you guys know I have the podcast now, and I've been on IG Live with college coaches. But if I would have started that 10 years ago, 15 years ago when I was in college, I mean, I wish we would have had LinkedIn when I was in college, because my Rolodex is pretty thick right now. But shit, if I would have had all the contacts of people that I met when I was in college, I'd still be coaching you guys, but I would have some side hustles making a lot more money than I am right now. So I hope you guys are listening. At the end of the day, this is about you. Hakeem, I appreciate you. We can take a couple more questions, but I just had to throw this out there that this is gold. I wish I would have had this information, and it's up to you guys to take it and use it. Because at the end of the day, Hakeem's good. I'm good, right? I got a beautiful wife and a gorgeous daughter. I'm good. This is about you all, you guys. This is about you guys and your future. So starting right now at what you're passionate about. I talked to Noah the other day. Maybe it's the Noah Lewis journey, or, and some of you guys will be self-conscious still and think, oh, I don't want to post on TikTok, and that's stupid. But yeah.
My best piece of advice, if you guys are still having that insecurity issue of like, fuck, the chemicals in my body when I think about posting on TikTok says I should not post on TikTok or start a podcast or anything like that. My best piece of advice is go to a COVID-friendly environment. So whether it's Main Street, wherever you live, or whether it's the mall, wear a mask. Go to the food court, go to the main most populated area in that place, and go lay on the floor for a minute and stare at the ceiling for 60 seconds straight. Only rule, you can't tell anybody that this is a social experiment or some bullshit like that. It's literally lay on the floor, stare at the ceiling, count to 60 in your head, get up and go about your business. Because if you can overcome the insecurity of 15 to 25 people staring at you going, what the hell are you doing? Or taking pictures of you or doing shit like that, you can overcome the fear and feeling of actually posting a piece of content for the world to see. Because it's the same exact feeling, but you will realize the same thing after posting a piece of TikTok content and laying on the floor, that you're not dead after you do it. You're going to be just fine. But more questions.
I want to just add one more thing to what you guys were talking about, like Coach Miner just said. So guys, when COVID first hit, there was a group of 3 of us. We had a very small group of coaches that were in an email group, and basically just talked about the system stuff, and we kind of helped each other out, talking about our style of play. Well, that little group, what happened is me and then 2 other guys, and 2 other guys kind of, they went off with it, and they used me for some of the content stuff. But they simply was just, hey, let's get that little email group together on Zoom to talk about questions. And then we decided, oh, it's working out pretty good. Let's bring in a speaker every night. Well, what eventually happens is that system group then turned into people outside of system. And then we started talking about things that were just basketball in general. Well, the guy who started it, he's a high school coach down in Southern California, and he worked in a bank. He has done so well just from 1 year of this, and with his network growing, he's got a podcast from it. He's got his own website where they sell all the I mean, he's done over 100 coaching clinics at this point of everything. In a year, he's ready to quit his job and just do this full time now, because of just took the opportunity of COVID and then did kind of what they're talking about here. And you start small. When it first went out, it was not to try to make money at all. It was simply is a community of coaches that want to learn about a style of play. And then that did well. And I was like, well, let's bring more people into this and talk about other things. And just in a short time frame, we're talking about just less than a year now. I mean, it has blown up pretty huge where he's one of the top, I think the stat that came out, he's one of the top 10 basketball producing content people on Facebook and Twitter right now. And that the stuff is important and it does help you immensely if you use it.
100%. And it really starts with exactly what he just said is if you're not caring about money to begin with and you're actually doing around something you have passion for, that's why and how it's going to be sustainable and how you can actually do this in perpetuity, because none of you guys are going to graduate, make $1 million in your first year post graduation and go move to Jamaica or Costa Rica and just live on the beach the rest of your life. That's just unrealistic. But if you can frame your life in 2021, it's super possible to create something around something that you actually love to do. And content is the greatest vehicle to honestly just ultimately get you there. And like back to basketball training, like for example, like the people who are more like super overly passionate about basketball and sports, don't really know anywhere else to go with it. If you triple down on your content around basketball, let me show you what's possible. After building an audience and a community for about 6 months on TikTok, I put out a post the other day saying, like, I was breaking down a Baker Mayfield play that just happened in a game. At the end of the piece of content, I said, I'm thinking about doing some virtual training for speed and agility. If anyone's interested, do me a favor and drop a football comment in the emoji, like a football emoji in the comments. And 2,000 people commented on that post to get virtual training from me. That's the punchline. Meaning, build content is how you build leverage. Once you build that leverage, then you ask. Once you ask, then you execute on the back end. But next question, or any other questions about anything, whether it's content, entrepreneurship, anything. Or honestly, I'd love to know, after hearing all of this, who right now is saying, and be honest, because I'm not gonna hurt my feelings. Who right now is saying, fuck this guy, no shot am I doing any of this shit. Content's not for me. Does anyone have that type? Like, just not, I don't see that as a negative, because I could see myself sitting through something like this and not having the time for it. But is anyone's mindset there? Or as to, maybe it's not that aggressive as fuck that guy, but maybe it's just like, no shot, I'm actually creating content now that this is over. Is anyone mindset there?
No, I have a question though. I just recently started like making like a video every like week about like stocks. I was wondering, are you invested in anything like you feel like could be like the future of like a company, or like small businesses that you think could go big, or what's your views on investments in terms of like the stock market?
Stock market, I don't like. I've got probably like around 50 grand or so with my financial advisor that I don't mess with. Like I'm not like a day trader in that sense. I don't let other people play with my money, if that makes sense, from a stock perspective. And it's such an intrinsic thing that you have 0.0% control of, i.e., last week with GameStop and Robinhood and all of that madness. If I was investing in the stock market, it'd be all long-term type of plays. Like I'd always bet on Amazon, but Jeff Bezos stepping down might make that a little bit iffy in that sense. I'm a big time better on like the jockey and not the horse, meaning who's running the company versus what the company is. There's a lot of people who threw their money at cannabis because they think cannabis is the next thing, but look at the data and look at how many cannabis companies came up and went down super fast because it's about the jockey and not the actual horse. So from a stock perspective, for me, it's hard because it's the stock market shouldn't be doing as well as it is doing right now. It's not a direct reflection of society, and it's like last week was the perfect proof that it's not a free market. It's allegedly a free market, but Wall Street and those hedge funds and those bankers have a lot more power than you could even imagine in that sense. And that's so for me, you can 100% make a buck on the stock market, but I only invest in things that actually light me on fire, if that makes sense. Like stocks, that doesn't excite me, not even kind of. Like looking at a ticker, could give a fuck. Looking at the charts, could give a fuck. Like, yes, maybe betting on, like, my media company plans on being long-term a holding company where we actually buy businesses, run them through the IP of where we think the current state of attention is to bring them to the next level and then sell them on the back end. That's kind of my experience and relationships with that, if that makes sense. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Do you have a follow-up to that, or
He was hoping you had the next GameStop get rich
No,
quick, pump it and dump it tip. That's what Jacob was really hoping for.
I heard that you have a weed farm, a business. What does that look like for you? Is it like a company or is it like a farm where you sell to different companies and you're a distributor?
Word. So it's back to passions. My passion's real estate. I don't really know much about growing weed. So it's a real estate play. I bought it with a bunch of real estate partners. We bought it for about $500,000, and we were hedging that cannabis was going to go recreational 8 months later. So bought it for $500,000. 8 months later, got an offer for $7 million when it went rec.
So you sold?
No, they're cashing out. We realized the opportunity we had long term because we have the capacity to put 42 20,000 square foot warehouses on the land, with each warehouse growing 2,000 plants, with the value of the land going up by 4 million per warehouse that we erected. So that was 2018. Now fast forward to 2020, we just partnered with a private equity firm that gave us a $19.3 million valuation to now develop the first warehouse of as many as we decide to actually erect, with the goal of, once we get our revenue over 100 million, to go public once it's recreational nationwide, and go public and try and get a valuation of around $1 billion. That's kind of the long-term play, but it's ultimately a real estate play. Like, we bought it, and I'm sure you've heard me mention the word leverage a bunch of times today. He who owns the gold makes the rules. So by owning the gold, the land in this case, which is the largest patch of land that's zoned to grow marijuana in Michigan, we now have the leverage to say that every company that decides to put a warehouse on our land, we now own 50% of that company. So this first company that we're about to erect, actually a 40,000 square foot warehouse, essentially doing 2-in-1 to grow 4,000 plants. We own 50% of that business. We have 3 of our members on the board of that company, but we're essentially cannabis landlords. But we can now partner with 40 other companies and own 50% of 40 other companies, if that makes sense. Kind of complicated, but that's the angle. I do what I know, which is real estate. So that's why I'm a cannabis landlord, but then have my foot dipped into the equity side of the actual cannabis business.
Knowledge, free game. Hopefully you guys are taking notes.
Free game Tuesday.
Let's go. Anybody else? We can wrap this up. I know we've been at it for 90 minutes now, but
yeah,
you guys one last chance, and then Keem, you got something?
Yeah, if there's any more questions, because questions is like, I know I can bring the most value via questions, but if not, any other questions, anybody?
I just had one. What are some good books to read about like entrepreneurship and things like that?
Entrepreneurship. Do you know Gary Vee is? Have you ever read Crushing It?
No, not yet.
Check that book out. Crushing It is unreal. He wrote a book called Crush It in like 2012, talking about the internet and what this internet thing was going to do to society and how you could love Ninja Turtles and make 50 grand a year off of Ninja Turtles if you put content out. And then he made Crushing It years later, that is essentially a whole bunch of stories of people who took his advice from Crush It and executed. And now he's highlighting those stories. And now it's a 2.0 version of all of the platforms out there and what you can do to create a brand and crush it on those platforms as an entrepreneur. Crush It's one book I would read. The Alchemist. You ever read that book?
Love that book.
It's a fictional story, but man, it's I wish I read it back. I didn't read it in college. I wish I would have read it back in college because it's a good book when you're on your journey looking for what your North Star is. Essentially, it's a short, quick fiction story. I would go Crushing It. I would go The Alchemist. And then we're talking entrepreneurship. 2 more books. Delivering Happiness. It's by a guy named Tony Hsieh. He actually just passed away, sadly enough. You ever heard of the company called Zappos, the shoe company? They were I don't even know what to compare it to. It's a great spot. It used to be a great spot to get shoes. He ran Zappos and is a big time real estate developer. But it's a great story of an entrepreneur and being just a go getter and making things happen regardless. But putting customer service at the center of it all. So Crushing It, The Alchemist, Delivering Happiness, and then lastly, The Go-Giver. Go-Giver that'll take you 2 hours maybe to read, like 120 pages maybe. But it's a story around giving, what giving actually means, how to give with no expectations, and what giving can do for you long term, and having essentially an abundance mindset. Great book. I've probably read that book 4 or 5 times because it's that good of a book. And it's a great book for someone who's on their journey, trying to figure it out, trying to make it happen. Honestly, anyone out there who's starting a podcast should read The Go-Giver as well. Because I was going to say, talks about being a connector in that book, because being able to connect the dots is how you can bring a lot of value back to yourself on the back end. Because giving, like making an introduction is a give. We always are trying to figure out how do we bring value, how do we give in every relationship, whether it's business or personal. Outside of the book, The Go-Giver, having a show, asking someone to come on your show might feel like it's an ask, but it's really a give because you're giving your platform to someone to actually tell their story. That makes sense, Antoine? Any more questions?
Yeah. What platforms do you use to actually like post a podcast? Like, how do you get a podcast out there? Like, I know you're talking about like putting like little segments of it on TikTok or like LinkedIn and stuff like that, but like, what do you actually like post the content?
So there's this website out there. Take out your pen. It's called GOOGL. I'm being a smart ass right now. Google is your mother. Meaning, like, I'm going to tell you how to fucking start a podcast. I'm just being an asshole right now. Google is your mother, meaning get after it. If you want to start a podcast, Google how to start a podcast and what it'll tell you. There's a site called Anchor. Anchor is owned by Spotify. Anchor is a completely free platform where you can now, let's say this was a podcast. It's being recorded. This is a Zoom session. When this is over, it'll turn into an MP4, and you can literally take this MP4, upload it to Anchor. You can edit it on Anchor, take out the oohs, the ums, the ahs, and all that type of stuff. You can add a jingle, an intro. You can do everything on Anchor. And then Anchor blasts your podcast out to Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher, every platform out there that hosts podcast. And then you take that 45-minute interview and you go to iMovie or some basic editing software, find the 3 to 4, 1 to 3 minute clips that there was super value there, chop, upload it to Instagram, chop, upload it to LinkedIn, chop, upload it to Facebook and whatever other platforms that you want to put your micro content in front of people. Most people sleep on micro content, meaning everyone starts a podcast and puts a heavy emphasis on the 45 minutes. You've seen this story post 100 times. Hey guys, just did my first interview with Jacob. A link in bio, go check out my show. No one is going to check out your show when you do that because you're putting too much friction on the end consumer. We are about speed in the year 2021, meaning if I'm in Instagram mode, I'm in Instagram mode. That doesn't mean I'm now going to take out my headphones, sit down for 45 minutes and listen to your fucking podcast. That's just real. But put the podcast where the people are. Ask your guests to make a selfie piece of content so you can take that 1 minute and put it on TikTok to drive traffic to your podcast. Take a 1 minute clip, just shoot me a DM on Instagram and I'll send you this video that'll show you how to put subtitles on your videos really, really fast, because 80% of content that's watched on Instagram and LinkedIn is watched without the sound on. So if you don't have subtitles on it, you're missing out on 80% of your audience because they're with their spouse watching a movie and they got their phone on their hip. They're listening to a keynote speaker on a Zoom call and they've got their phone under the fucking thing. And if the sound goes off, people are gonna be like, what the fuck? They're at school, they're at work. So if you don't have subtitles on, you're gonna miss out on all of those people. And when they see your video, all they're gonna see is, so put subtitles on your videos. Just shoot me a DM and I'll shoot you a video. I kind of have like a screen recording where it's like side by side explaining exactly how to do it. It only takes 6 to 8 minutes per video to drop the subs on them. But Anchor is everything. But I use that smart ass Google comment because the technicalities are all out there. It's just like we have all of this technology and most of us don't take advantage of it. Like most of your questions are Googleable and YouTubeable. But I'm here to answer all those questions. I just love when people ask something like as tactical as that. I'm just like, Google is your mother at the end of the day. More questions.
We'll take one more, and I know some of you guys are already having to hop off if you got shit to do. No stress, but we'll take one more question if anybody's got one. Anybody else want to say something? Give you guys 1, 2. Parker, what's your podcast on? You're the only one that marked on their survey that they have a podcast. Talk to us.
I said that. I put
Oh,
that down.
typo then. You're the only one. It stood out, but so nobody here has a podcast yet. So there is so much opportunity. Hopefully you guys got something out of this call tonight. I know I've got a couple text messages from you guys saying that you got free game and knowledge and all that. So Hakeem, it was awesome, man. I got my notebook filling up and I'm going to go back and look over everything again. I really appreciate you, man. That was so much knowledge and so much stuff you've taken a long time to learn. And now you're just pouring into these guys and didn't have to do this, man. So I really appreciate it. And I know these guys do too.
No doubt. My last thing to leave you guys with something is the fortunes and the follow-up. We're presented hundreds, if not thousands of opportunities on a day-to-day basis, especially as college athletes. None of us follow up, whether it's with me, whether it's with one of your professors that will wind up being on the board of advisors of a company that you guys start, whether it's a professor that's going to be a second guest on your podcast, whether it's just a family friend, a parent, someone who said they can make an intro, but you never followed up on it. Follow up. All of the fortune is actually in following up. That's the last thing I'd love to leave you guys with. I appreciate your attention, your attentiveness. Your questions were amazing. And anything I can ever do for you guys, don't hesitate to reach out.
Good stuff, man. Thanks so much. I know these guys got a lot out of it. If you guys are average, you'll unmute now and say thank you. If you're above average, you're going to send out a direct message to him on Instagram and thank him. If you're really above average, you're going to figure out how to get him a postcard or get him something. If you're next level, and you're over 21, you're going to send him a bottle of wine. Let's go. That's what B Miner's doing. You guys are good to go. Go ahead, unmute.
Thank
give
you.
him some love.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No,
Thank
no
you.
doubt,
Thank
fellas.
you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you guys.
You're gonna be my first guest on my podcast when I started.
Hit me up, bro. I'm there. I'm like yesterday. Start that shit tomorrow. I got a Zoom account. If you ain't got a Zoom account yet, I'll record the screen and send you the record. Make it happen.
Sure, appreciate you, man.
No doubt, guy.
Appreciate it, bro.
Appreciate you. What you gonna start a podcast on, Josh? Oh, he already left. I see you, Sean.
All right, Sean.
Appreciate it. Good. It was everything was good. Thank you.
Appreciate that, man. You have a good one.
I followed you on Instagram too. I'm gonna look at your videos. I was messing with everything.
Yeah. All right, man.